dialing in to real value propositions to your audience is the key. And that's the big differentiator for the best really performers and marketers, because they understand how to tap into their audience based on real value.
Welcome to Be Bold Branding, where we discuss the power of differentiating yourself through your own unique story and standout personal brand. Hey, just a reminder that this season we're talking about the one bold move that our guests have made, which gained them recognition and authority in their space. And speaking of a bold move, today we're talking with Jeff Fitzer, a real estate industry influencer and co-founder of Drunk on Social. He helps businesses and brands grow to new levels through social media. Today we're going to learn the bold move he made that got him where he is today, and a lot more.
Yeah, let's welcome my good friend Jeff Fitzer to Be Bold Branding.
Guys, great to be back. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As we were talking before we headed into this interview, we see each other a lot, but it's through social media on each other's platforms, right? So I said, yes, Jeff, but that's just one-way communication right now. So it's not too often that we get to be kind of in the same virtual room together. So that's really nice.
It is super nice. Busy's good, but only getting to run into you in a two-way conversation all the time is hard to do. But I was watching something the other day that you were on, and you were actually talking about podcasts and how important it is to people. So I do keep up with you, which is awesome. So
yeah, good. Glad to know it's working.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's start, Jeff. Let's just go right at it. Okay. Right out of the gate. What is the one bold move that you feel you've made that is particularly top of mind with you, that said, okay, once I made this move, that got me into a totally different space?
Yeah. Well, I've told my story on your show before, so I'm going to go more recent bold move, because it's been a constant evolution. And obviously, the story goes way back, and it was doing video and nobody was doing it, and then leaning into social when nobody was doing it. But I would say more specifically, and part of the reason why we founded Drunk on Social was we want to be the innovators, the front runners, the first to platforms. And I started to realize that, going back to video, and then it is now evolved into where I was one of the first ones speaking and preaching about TikTok. And I know it's now old news, but when I was doing that in 2019, most hadn't even heard of it. And then when they did start to learn about it, it was, that's just for teenage girls dancing around. It's not relevant. And it was at that time, but it was the foresight to see the potential that it had that paid off handsomely for me, because at first, for the first year or so, I'm an idiot and you don't know what you're talking about. This is stupid. This has no relevance. And then all of a sudden it started to grab hold of our society. And now it really literally drives every platform. They're all copycatting it. And now the way we market, the way you see Super Bowl commercials, they look like TikToks. And now I'm a genius. So I went from idiot to genius, but that the willingness to take a chance on things and know that I'm going to get called an idiot and sometimes even be wrong. What I've learned is that when I'm wrong, nobody remembers. When I'm right, it just elevates my status to stratospheric levels. And that's kind of where we're at now.
Yeah. I love that. And for our listeners, you got to know that there's a little bit of a backstory, right? So Jeff and I and Tanya have been friends and working together for a long time. And Jeff actually spoke at one of my real estate think conferences, pounding the table about TikTok and video. And so he's telling the absolute truth. We've been with him on the ride. I remember one of our first podcasts together, you were talking about it and you were just like, you got to do this. You got to do this. I'm telling everybody. So that is a great bold move. And then stickability is really big too, because you never backed up on that. And, and as you begin to see, like you said, a year's a long time to say, guys, I'm right, whether anybody's listening or not, and then end up, it happened like you said it would.
That's it. And I think the moral of the story, I think for most audiences is that, and I use TikTok as an example, but our world is evolving so incredibly fast, and it's revolving faster and faster every day. And so the first to product, the first to adoption we're now seeing are the ones that are reaping the largest rewards. And that's no different than TikTok. You see the real estate names that have the biggest followings on TikTok, that have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of followers. They were early adopters. And there's a reason for that, because the algorithm evolves and becomes more difficult. And it's the same thing with Instagram. We experience it on all of the platforms. Facebook's, an outlier, but, changing your mindset to not being so much of a follower, or always coming in with limiting beliefs. Like so many people came in with TikTok, and they do with every new platform. This is a reason why I shouldn't. This is a reason why I shouldn't. Maybe start thinking about maybe why you should. Why it doesn't hurt to try, because if you do and it pays off, boom, like you're going to be a skyrocket.
Yeah.
It's, and I got to add this, that concept's not new. Like in the 22 immutable laws of marketing, it says you're better to be first than you are to be best. Like that's just the way it is. Right.
And let's talk about the rewards of TikTok. Tell us a little bit about what it's done for you, what it's done for, Drunk on Social, which you guys founded. How many years ago was it now? It's just a few years ago. And the growth is tremendous.
Yeah. Just a couple of years. We started a Facebook group called Viral Video. And then and what ended up happening was we were realizing that was a pretty diluted space. And what didn't exist was anybody really focusing on a broader spectrum of social media and talking about what's coming. And it was kind of TikTok that drove this, because it was like, gosh, there's so much happening that it's important to know about, because the more you know about it, the quicker you can jump on it. Like Instagram Reels, when it came out, like the quicker you jumped on it, the more, the more success you had with it. And that continues to happen. So it's like right now, it's all about, for us, it's all about studying what's working best at each platform. Like if you're in Facebook, you should be focusing on groups. If you're in Instagram, you should be focusing on Reels. If you're in TikTok, you should be paying attention to the fact that they're talking about adding a third feed, which is geography based. And if you start leaning into putting out content around your local area, you're probably going to stand above when this gets released. It's in beta testing right now. And so what selfishly for Tristan and I, it was like, we need to know this stuff, so it positions ourselves, our own businesses better. And then we realized, let's just share this with the world. And I'll say it. I said it a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, and I'm continue to say it today. The world doesn't know they need what we have yet, because we just haven't evolved to it yet. But eventually, when most businesses adapt and grow, and they realize how critically important social media is to their business and their brand, that's when we're going to be positioned way out ahead as the authorities. And that's our goal. Our goal is to be that authority. And it's since evolved into coaching, and we manage brands now. We do all kinds of stuff, but that's where it all derives from.
Absolutely. Yep. Super good stuff.
Yeah. So here's the funny thing about TikTok. I was in line for lunch the other day, and this young girl and her mother and her grandmother, 3 generations, were right beside me in the lunch line. And I could hear the mom saying, man, she's on TikTok again. I just can't get her off TikTok. And it was a young girl. She was probably 14, 15 years old. She sat her phone up on a little ledge, stepped back, did a little dance with the trending music, right? And then she said, come on, Grandma. And Grandma did a little dance then. And they posted it right there. And I said, you guys keep doing what you're doing. That's adorable, right? But it just goes to show that it spans generations when it finally hits. And to be that, early adapter of that is what's so incredibly important. What would you say to somebody who's just now entering into the TikTok world?
Well, I'm going to backtrack from that even based on what you said, which was, she's always on TikTok. And, we demonize as a society, we demonize whatever's now. And if I turn back the clock to when we carried beepers, there was a time when we demonized beepers, because if you had a beeper, you were a drug dealer. But you all know that that was the mode of communication. And then you went to a payphone and called somebody back.
Right.
And anybody who's from our generation or older knows that and remembers that. And I could rewind the clock even further back and say, and I wasn't around then, but when radios first came out, and moms across America were saying, damn these machines. Now all my kids want to do is come inside and listen to the radio, when before they wanted to play outside. And so we demonize whatever's now. And so 20 years from now, we're going to look back and say, gosh, I long for the day when it was just social media. It's just the way the world evolves. And every single piece of technology runs that way. And so You're never too late. That's the thing. And the beauty of what we now do is, as it relates to video and social media, because social media is becoming dominated by video. So if you aren't embracing video, you're liable to just be swimming in a graveyard on social media, because you're not going to get seen very much. And so you're never too late. And especially in our industry, which is real estate, even though we're the most innovative and advanced industry, the fraction of people executing on a consistent level is so minuscule. And so those of you that are willing to, no pun intended, be bold and put yourselves out there and get uncomfortable, you're going to have so much opportunity, because consistency wins in this game. And it's just a matter of connect. You have an infinite audience for free if you just turn on your camera more often and share your life more often. And that's the point, because you know what they say in our industry, and I'm sure this applies to many, is that, and this is a NAR stat, it's roughly 90% of homeowners say they'll use their realtor again, and only 13% do. And the reason why is multifold, but primarily because we suck at staying top of mind.
Exactly.
Because they could love you. You could have been the greatest realtor in the world, but over the course of however many years, when they're ready to buy or sell again, they fell in love with someone on social because they could connect and resonate with them. Not because they sold them real estate. It's because they grow tomatoes and so does that consumer, or because they're a golfer and so is that consumer, or they love watching their birds on their bird feeder, like I am right out my window right now. And I connect with people as a result of that, or they have like similar age kids, or they're in a similar pace in their life together. They travel, whatever it is. That's how people get connected to people, fall in love with them, become raving fans, and why we lose out on our past customers, because we do a shitty job of staying in touch with them anyway.
That's exactly right. No matter what that is, whether that's social media or not, yeah, it's interesting, because, when Tanya and I started working together, and she actually built out my brand as a turnkey situation for my real estate brokerage, radio was dead. 18% of my phone calls come from radio commercials. I never stopped running radio commercials. I'm never going to stop running radio commercials as long as my ideal customer is at the end of that radio commercial, right? Social media, same way. We strategize on how to stay in touch with people and evolve with them during that. So but you hit the nail on the head. It's so hard to get people to do it. Like, even, the 80-20 rule has always been the case. Like 20% of the people doing the work and making 80% of the money. And I even think it's probably more like 90-10.
Actually, there's a stat that I heard from an influencer who said 1% of social media users are creators, 9% are light engagers, and 90% are just lurkers. And so when you really think about that,
that's
1% are creators. Yeah, that is so much opportunity, and 90% are just watching. So which one do you want to be? Do you want to be the watcher, which most of you are, or do you want to be the one that's showing up on the watchers' pages when they're lurking those social media platforms? I can't stand on a mountaintop and preach this enough, because the reality is this, like you said, Michael, you're not going to stop doing some of your old strategies because they work. But the reality is this, as a real estate agent, mortgage professional, really any professional, do you enjoy cold calling? Do you enjoy buying leads? Do you enjoy door knocking?
Nobody does.
Exactly. And so if you can use attraction-based marketing and have your phone ring because people can feel connected to you, it changes your life. And so for me, I'm just a practitioner. And I'm passionate about it, because this is, we 5X'd our mortgage business. I've scaled out of that business so I can focus on these other businesses, which make it rain back on that business. And I'm just living it. So I'm not passionate about it because I'm selling anything. I'm passionate about it because it freaking works. And that's it.
Oh yeah. And
we're testament to you continuing to do that. You're not saying anything different to us than you said first time I met you 3 years ago, right?
It's just gotten better and more evolved. That's it.
It's just got better and more involved, and it got us involved. My real estate company started doing it because of what you were talking about even back then, and knowing that was the truth. So I hope that's a good takeaway for the listeners, because his message is still the same, and that means that it's still working. You need to get into this, and when 99% open field of an emerging market to be a creator, you get creating, right? So you're a passionate guy, like you built some businesses, you've done really good. You made a lot of bold moves. It would be hard really to say one or the other. But so let's ask this kind of question. What is the best advice that you would say that a mentor ever gave you about business?
Oh, that's a good question. It was a mentor at a company that we were at for 2 years, and it was a horrible 2 years, but it was what helped define where I am today, because I had to think about differentiation, which now led me down the path that I went down. But we sat down for lunch one day, and he told me, he said, "Jeff, I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to answer it pretty much immediately because you should be able to." And the question was, what is your value? What is your value prop? What are your value propositions to your target audience? And of course, I couldn't spout it off. And as I got to thinking about it with him that day, and he said, this is something that so few salespeople, leaders, all of the above don't think about. And now that I'm in the position and I coach, and I always lead with that question. And I can tell you that 9 times out of 10 in our industry, if not 10 out of 10, I get the same general answers from a real estate agent or mortgage professional. And it all leads around value of, well, I treat my customer like family, and I'm going to give the greatest customer service, and I'm going to be accessible nights and weekends, and I'm going to meet all closing dates, and I'm going to provide the best products. What people lack an understanding about is that that's not value. We as real estate professionals, that's our job. And so really dialing in to real value propositions to your audience is the key. And that's the big differentiator for the best really performers and marketers, because they understand how to tap into their audience based on real value. So for me as a mortgage originator, my target is primarily twofold. It's mainly real estate agents and it's other loan originators. And what I really stumbled upon, I'm not going to stand here and say I just had this brilliant idea and I executed it. But when I was looking at differentiation, what ended up happening was my phone started to ring from real estate agents saying, "Hey, Jeff, you're the video expert." And at first I was like, well, I'm hardly an expert. But then it started to dawn on me, oh, I am, because of that perception and because of my execution. And then I started to realize as I studied this, most brokers in our industry actually suck. Mm-hmm. They aren't practitioners of video and social. So now I bridged a gap of something that they need and want in their business. And so then I just kind of went all in, and I'm like, I'm just going to be that guy to provide mass value. I'm never going to talk about, my mortgage products, because we really, it's a widget. We all sell the same 30-year exactly. FHA, USDA. Yeah, sure. There's some minor tweaks in there, and there's some goofy products, but for the most part, most borrowers take out conventional FHA, USDA, VA. It's the same thing. And so the differentiators are very difficult to find. And so when you can really understand and tap into how can I attract my audience by giving them something that actually is real value to them and just come from contribution. I mentioned that many, many times. I learned this from Tristan, and you don't ask, I never have sales breath anymore. People ask me all the time, what's your call to action? And my answer is nothing. All I do is come from contribution and give, because what I've learned is if you're patient, it will come back to you tenfold. Mm-hmm. And not everybody. Some people just use me for knowledge and to get better, and that's fine, whatever, But some people really appreciate it, and it ends up coming back. And so, if you're a real estate agent listening to this and you're thinking, okay, shit, yeah, he's right, I don't know what my value prop is. The answer is, who's your audience, first of all? And I know the answer already. It's probably community-driven homeowners, renters, right? What's valuable to them? And if you say to yourself, I'm the market expert, I can give them all the data. Yeah, so can every other real estate agent in town. Mm-hmm. And I can, I'm going to show off my closings, and I'm going to talk about where rates are going and if there's going to be a recession. That's not what's attracting eyeballs. I get it. You got to sprinkle that in there because you got to remind people what you do. But what are they interested in? They want a community aggregator of content. They want somebody who's going to maybe be the person that tells them, hey, where's the local trunk or treats that I can take my kids to? Yep. Where can I donate food to the local pantries for Thanksgiving? Where are the breakfasts with Santas? When's the next high school ball game or the college game? What's the weather look like? What's the political election coming up? What are local businesses doing that you can highlight? People get passionate and love that stuff. And I'm not telling anybody anything they don't already know. But so few people lean into this and do it consistently. And that's where they're missing their opportunity, because that's one just golden ticket where they can just really grow their authority status within a community and become the expert.
It really is. Takeaway number 3 and 4, folks. Big stuff right there. Jeff, what's next for you? That might be like crazy question, considering you've got a tiger by the tail and you're holding on.
We are constantly testing. And so right now I'm really leaning into, I lean into TikTok and Instagram. That's where I do most of my creation. And then I multi-purpose it out everywhere else, depending on what it is. My primary focus is, so on TikTok, as I mentioned, I'm doing what I told you, that what, I saw this news story a couple of months ago about so on TikTok right now, it's when you open it up, you've got a For You and a following. For You is the algorithm, which it's brilliant algorithm. It shows you what you want to see and entertains you for hours if you want. And then you've got the following, which is simply who you're following. And that's what you're going to see when you scroll. But they're talking about adding a geotag. And so there'll be a third option. And I do believe that most of us humans are very interested in what's going on around us because it hits home, right? It connects with us.
Right.
It gives us ideas of parks to go to, restaurants to eat at, things to do. And so I think if you're going to lean into TikTok right now, you really need to focus on trying to build content around your local community. It's what I'm doing around the Lake of the Ozarks. Part of that chose me. I didn't choose it. I have a big audience because of the Lake of the Ozarks, and I just really started leaning into it consistently mid-August. And since then, I've grown my following by 5,000 followers, and I've gotten, I think it's close to about 3.5 million eyeballs on my content, in addition to thousands of shares and saves, obviously tons of comments, which is just people raising their hand saying, "Hi, Jeff," essentially, right? And I'm just leaning into it. So I'm actually doing it as a proof of concept. I've since partnered with a couple of realtors down there who were, of course, saw it and were like, "This is freaking awesome," because I've actually driven a couple of buyer leads by not even asking for it. They said, "Jeff, you're the authority on the Lake of the Ozarks. We're from Colorado. We want to buy a house in Missouri. Oh, and by the way, there's two of us that want to do that. Can you help advise us?" I'm not even a realtor. And so, of course, that was very validating, but I expect this is going to take a good 6 months to a year. It's creating other influencer opportunities because I've got like a boat parts company that have reached out to me that said they want to collaborate because they see I'm getting the eyeballs. And so if I can get the eyeballs, essentially, I'm probably going to create opportunities I don't even foresee. But my goal is to create a geographic authority to where anytime I post a real estate listing of any kind, I'm going to get a bunch of hand raisers, which as a real estate agent is a bunch of potential buyers, which is gold. And so that's kind of my vision. That's my goal with this is I want to prove this. And so I set a goal to post once a day on TikTok. So I batch create a crap ton of content when I go down there. We're now doing highlight videos, highlighting local businesses, which is also creating new contacts with business owners. And I'm just leaning into it. It's all built around, like, my latest post from last night was doing really well as of this morning. I haven't looked since then. And it's just about a new development that's coming. And I just said, "What do we think about this?" And I use my editing skills to drop in some overlays of the news article. And I'm just talking about it. It's really not rocket science. And I'm just jumping on it. So that's my TikTok. And we've since created 2 other TikTok channels, by the way. And then we on Instagram, it's all I lean into completely separate content. It's all authentic content. So it's the Fitzer family reality TV show, coupled with social tips, social news, and I just kind of alternate and depending on what's going on in my daily life, because there are some times and I've got 2 or 3 personal TikTok or reels that I'll post, and I'm going all reels. All I post are reels anymore on Instagram. And I lean into my stories and I lean into reels, and that's it. And then going back to the TikTok strategy, I'm also going to create a Lake of the Ozarks. We're going to call it Lake of the Ozark Highlights, and I'm going to create a YouTube channel called that, and I'm going to create a Facebook group called that. And so now I'm going to be tapping into different audiences by taking the content that I'm already creating and just multi-purposing it. So I'm not going to create a ton of work for myself, but who knows? I mean, hell, if YouTube could turn into a monetization channel, and of course Facebook, the power of those groups. And so that's what I'm doing now. The one thing, by the way, to answer your question, Michael, too, is what I've learned as I'm speaking about this stuff is, we talk about what the future of real estate looks like and how robots are going to take over the industry, and they are. It's coming. It's AI. It's VR. It's AR. It's automation. It's all this stuff. But the one thing that we are realizing is that you can beat the robots with authenticity, but you're not going to beat them at their game, which is quick responses, which is never having to sleep, which is automated replies. You know, they're going to kick our ass.
Sure.
And there's nothing we can do about it. So, but the one thing they can't do is robots don't have kids. Robots don't, you know, they don't have spouses. They don't travel. They don't go to church. They don't have hobbies. And those are the things where I think we as a society of humans can delay this. And notice I said delay because I don't think there's any stopping it. Luckily, I think for us, based on our ages, I think we are not going to be alive to see it happen. But, you know, for my kids, I want to make them relevant as humans, you know?
Sure.
I think that's where you go.
I think I want to say a couple of things. I want to back up just a little bit because to the listeners, listen to what he said about the TikTok strategy. And now let me see, he may not even remember, but I remember him being on our B Bowl 3 years ago. And he talked about, you were down at the Lake of the Ozarks and you took a TikTok video of a boat race. And this thing ended up like going viral. And at the time we had talked to you, had like 50,000 views or something. And we were all blown away then. Even you were blown away. You were like, I just took a picture of this boat. Like, of course, it was a badass boat, but I mean, just cutting across the lake. And so he said then about the power of TikTok, and he is still saying the same thing now. So you got to listen to what the authorities are telling you. Okay. That's the first takeaway. And then the second takeaway that I want to point out is what you said about is the AI. And you're so right. And AI is a crazy thing when you think about it, but you're right. It's that machine is going and there are people spending trillions of dollars on it. We will never stop it. But they are never going to let the cat out of the house. They're never going to water the plants. They're never going, like you said, they don't have children. They're not going to support ball clubs in town. And if you take into consideration, all platforms right now are geocentric. They're trying their best to serve a local community. It's not like the very Gary Vaynerchuk days when, hey, I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram and I'm going to blow this thing up. And then I've got followers all over the world because they haven't restricted me. And that has already happened. And that's why I think a lot of people have frustration and they're like, well, you know, I'm posting and I have one like. Well, if you're chasing likes, you're not doing it right. You got to listen to what Jeff's saying. You got to give them stuff that's important to your community. When I teach people, not just real estate agents, but all our entrepreneurs about finding an ideal client and a focus, we're constantly reducing it, not expanding it. Yeah. Because if you could get 50 people, if you could get 20 people in a room to listen to what you're saying, then you'll make more money than you'll ever be able to spend. Yeah. And so many people go towards that other thing and they like, oh, I got to be this star, right? Let that happen organically. Yeah. You start serving, like you said, give that content from a contribution standpoint to be valuable to what's going on. You know, did we have the Halloween walk in Jefferson, Georgia last Thursday? You know, we put all that all over our Facebook and then we come back the next day and said, last year we had 723. This year had 1,685. Yeah. So, you know, we're able to like be a part of the community. That gets more engagement than anything else we'll post. So there's some takeaways for the listeners with what Jeff's saying, just backing up what you're saying.
Well, and I'm glad you said that too, because that's what we're preaching is vanity doesn't mean anything anymore. In fact, so one of the things that we're also studying is Gen Z. And so what we've kind of learned over the last 5 or 6 years is how much the youth of America drive what happens, what comes. And you think about it, like Facebook was a college app. And you think about like Snapchat now, it just really controls the way the youth of America communicate. And then you think about TikTok, which was a youth app. And then us old gray hairs, you know, we infiltrate and take it over. And guess what? They move on. Guess where they're moving now? They're moving to an app called Be Real. And so it's important to understand, though, the dynamic behind what the Gen Zs of the world are interested in. And you said it best, Mike. I love it. You said this. It's about niching down now. It used to be broad-based and how viral can you go? And that's what mattered. It doesn't matter anymore. And I tell people, I said, you believe what I say and you lean into it and you go home and you do it. And then you get so paralyzed by that one post because it's not performing when really what you should be focused on is another post the next post, another post the next day. And like you said, Michael, it'll happen. Most of my posts don't perform that well. But because I'm so consistent, I get put. I mean, you said 50,000. Now I'm getting 700,000 views on TikToks, and it's crazy. But I don't really give a shit. It doesn't matter.
Right.
If I don't just continually pump it out, it'll never happen. I'll get paralyzed. And as I always say, my shitty post will outperform your non-existent one.
Yeah,
and that's the reality.
You can't win if you don't play.
I love
right?
it. I love it.
Okay, so this question may sort of be answered for those of you who know where you spend a lot of your time, but we always ask our guests this. If our listeners had the freedom to visit any place in the world, which place would you recommend visiting and why?
Oh, gosh. I travel a lot, so that's really challenging. What is the purpose of the visit? Is it for vacation? Is it for business? What's it for?
Totally personal.
Yeah, totally fun, personal, relaxing, any of those categories.
Gosh.
Magical, beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my wife and I went to, so we're big on just kind of experiences, right? And so we went to Europe this past summer on a whim with some friends. And I'm a huge sports fan, and we decided Wimbledon was going on at the time. And so I was like, let's just go take a flyer and go see if we can get tickets. And we couldn't, or they were way too expensive off the street. But then, so we went into Wimbledon, had lunch, and then we came back. We're like, let's just go check out the queue, which is called the line in London. They call it the queue. And we walk up to the front of the queue, and there's no line. And it's a long, like a mile long line, or a mile long, where the line would have been. And the guy's like, I think there's still tickets available, and believe it or not, there's no line right now. And this is like in the middle afternoon. And so we're like, shit, maybe we got lucky. And so we run up to the front of the line, and we get up to the front, and the person in front of us, that we hear them say, you're going to get the last seats that we have for Wimbledon. We could have got grounds passes, but they weren't 4 seats together. There was 4 of us. And they're like, so you're going to have 2 and 2. And I'm like, shit, we missed it by literally one group of people. And some guy is standing back behind the ticket counters, and he hears us kind of clamoring, and he walks up to me and goes, how many are you? And I said 4. He goes, hold on a second. And he goes into his office, and he comes back. He goes, I actually had 4 other seats, and they're all together, and they're in court 2. And we're like, holy yeah. And I tell you what, it was an incredible experience. I love all sports. Tennis is not my favorite of the sports, but I tell you what, I was on cloud 9 all day, and we ate it up and went to Hinman Hill. If you're familiar with tennis, and man, it was such a cool experience. And so my answer to your question would be, especially if you're a sports fan, try to go experience some of those events. We went to the Ryder Cup last year in Wisconsin. That was really cool. That would be my advice. But I'll tell you, my wife has already said, because that was her first time to Europe, she's like, when are we going back? And so Europe, the culture in Europe, it's just different, and we love culture, because us Americans are pretty pompous, we're a pretty arrogant culture, and so it's kind of neat to experience cultures that are just completely different, and we enjoyed it. So I would agree. That'd be my answer.
That's a good answer. I like it. The reason we put that in there not only is to learn a little bit more about our guests, but also because we're the same way. Like, we love to travel because we just love all cultures, and we like to see how other people do it, and see how we can, add that and add our own flavor to them. It's really good. I think that travel is the greatest education that any human being could ever get, and I encourage it every time.
I tell my wife all the time. I said, if we're tight on money, the one thing we're not going to jeopardize is experiences. Mm-hmm. And I said, we're going to take those memories with us forever. And, you can't take that Louis Vuitton purse with you forever. Right. And you can't take those pants or that shirt or that car, but these experiences. And even though our kids might disagree, depending on where they're at in life, because I have a 13-year-old son right now, all he wants is a motor, a dirt bike or a 4-wheeler. And it's just like, I'm gonna put my money towards vacations, and I know you're not going to appreciate it now, but eventually you will.
You will.
Yeah, it's so important to us. In fact, I'm going to Cabo next week, so that's the first time I'll be in Cabo. So
yeah, one of our other I love Cabo, and one of our other listeners said Cabo the other day. Yeah.
Well, it'll be my first time there, so we'll see how we go to Cancun all the time, but never that side.
Yeah, you're going to the other side now. It'll be great. You'll love it. So, hey, Jeff, where can listeners learn more about you, work with you if they want to work with you? How do they connect?
Yeah, well, social is a safe place, and any of the platforms. So wherever you spend your time, you just look me up by my name. It's that's how I'm found everywhere. Also, we have a website, drunkonsocial.com. So you can, if you go there, we put out daily blogs. We have daily, we actually do a thing, not daily. We aspire for daily, but we do a 10-minute we call it a podcast. Where Tristan and I talk about something that's in the news. And then sometimes we put those together and put it into a formal podcasting platform. But we have a newsletter. We have all kinds of stuff on there, tons and tons of content. But I would just follow wherever you spend time. And as I tell people that want to grow a social strategy, it starts with consumption first. You have to be the consumer. You're not just going to commit to it one day and say, okay, I'm just going to start up posting. You got to go consume and follow 5 to 10 people that you really enjoy, that capture your attention, and then build and form your own brand and identity based upon a mix of what you like the most, and establish your content pillars, establish who you are as a human being, and then start posting about all of it. Throw it all up against the wall, see what sticks. Your audience will tell you what they want, just like my TikTok audience told me what they wanted with Ozarks, and then you lean into it. And so you'll start broad, and then it'll niche down, and before you know it, you'll be off to the races. Your phone will be ringing, and you'll have a whole different business.
What a great ending.
That's great.
That is fantastic.
Thank you for coming on our podcast again, Jeff. It was a pleasure to see you again.
Yes, pleasure to converse with you again. And yep, totally
Likewise.
Looking forward to it.
Likewise.
All right, folks, y'all know what we say all the time, that prosperity favors the bold. So we say be bold, especially with your brand, and get on those social media platforms. Check out Jeff Fitzer. Check out Drunk on Social. They're going to do great things for you.
Brought to you by BrandFace, the only comprehensive personal brand building system across the globe.